So hi everyone, it's me, Elizaveta Alenikova, the expert liaison of Student Gaidar 2021 conference. So today we are going to discuss how generations and relations between them affect the present and the future of business, corporate world, and education. So let me introduce the guest of this session. Evgeniya Shamis, founder and coordinator of the research center RuGenerations, founder and CEO Sherpa S Pro, and co-author of Trilogy on Generations.
Hello.
So hi Evgeniya. So let me start with the first question. So the most of us experience new distant formats in many spheres of life, including work and study. So I'm curious how distant format in education affect Generation Z and millennials.
I would say that it influences not just Generation Z and millennials, but from generational point of view, it's important when it happens during the childhood. So the generation which is really affected by this phenomenon is Generation Z or homelanders, those who are born starting from 2003 and are still being born till 2023. So they get used to this when they are in the kindergartens, during their classes, extracurriculum like activities which they have now from a very early age, in junior school and in middle school. They learn to deal with this, and they also learn how to combine different formats. So they're not afraid of this, and when we study this during our activities, we see that they're actually leading the organizational process of this. They can switch on all the programs, all applications, switch in between of them, use various things, and they advise actually the adults, including the millennials and the families, who can be the elder brothers, sisters, on how to use the modern digital world and this distant education. The challenge is actually for all of us, and for them it's one thing which is the result which we have already traced for Generation Z. This is interesting because then I will switch on to the current students, but Generation Z is the future workforce, human capital, which is going to come to us quite soon. We are working, among our clients are over 220 corporations, global and Russian, and I can say that we start seeing them in the colleges, in production companies. So, but this is just the beginning and more like the border generation being born in between millennials and homelanders, or in other words, it could be between Generation Y, who are millennials, and Generation Z, who are homelanders. And but what they said already, because they were kind of limited in live communication, they are really missing this now. And from generational point of view, so what we studied two things actually, which are important for all the generations. Number one, values. What do we stand for? What's important for us? And number two, traditional, typical scenarios of behavior. How do we want to study? How we want to communicate in a shop? How we want to chat, to talk and deal with our friends? So those are the small things which are very different in between of generations. And so there are four factors which form the generations, three which were formulated by the founders of the approach, Neil Howe, William Strauss from the United States of America. And the fourth we formulated for the world in our research center, RuGenerations. And here I want to mention the fourth factor because we see it with Generation Z now with this distant education. It is called something which is a deficit in the childhood of the generation becomes a value. And the deficit for current kids, it's not something material. It is exactly the non-material thing. It's a possibility to communicate in a live mode, and it doesn't matter which age they communicate with. Adults, kids, more important that it's possible to meet people alive. For example, during this year of the studies, which is 2020 to 2021, we had many stories on the 1st of September, which is the first day of studies in Russian schools, that those kids in the junior school, they were kissing the desktops. The desks in the classes, I mean,
So
those
sweet.
the tables they sit at, and they were commenting that they were, and it's like expression of this great missing of live communication, of the possibility to be with the kids. And another comment which I really like is one of, we had similar ways, but one of the girls formulated this perfectly, the second year junior school girl. She said, "Mom and Dad, I love everyone in our class, including the hooligans and boys with bad behavior, because you don't care who's there. You care that you were limited and strictly limited in the format of the live communication." So, but this will influence all of us, because with other generations definitely understood that we are not ready to get fully and totally into the distant format. That it's not nice, and I think you as students felt this tremendously. I was, for example, lucky. I teach twice a year in Ranepa, and once I teach with the first year students of bachelor degree, and the second time I teach at the English language master's degree, which I will have in April. And I was really lucky, because my course for the first year students is actually one of the first courses, and I had it live in September and October. And then there was again this moment when all the classes were stopped physically. But imagine you enter the university and you miss the possibility to get acquainted with your group mates, course mates, and you don't know them. And being distantly with each other is not the same like being alive. I'm not talking about the phenomenon we have, for example, with teenagers, with the first loves they have, because it's very difficult, actually. It's important to experience the first love, but it's very difficult to experience it distantly. And now we have a number of stories like there were in a romance, teenager romance, and during this quarantine times, they were talking about like, oh, we were looking at the sunset or sunrise, being in different parts of the city, from different balconies, and sharing the experience. So for the students, it was the same, because you need to build those relations, and you need to develop the skills how to study in the university and how to deal differently from the school with all this knowledge. The second thing I would say is very interesting for the millennials now, or border generation, those who are born from 1999 to 2005. And if you want to see the dates of the generations, just go to our website, RuGenerations.su, like former Soviet Union, because we study also post-Soviet countries. And we have the question, do we need to rename it? Probably we will rename it one day, but we started it, and you know, you have too many other things to do. And so there you have the correct borders of the generations. And I have to admit, we are now the only company in the world, the only research center in the world dealing with the definition of the borders. Because it's quite challenging and complicated stuff, because you need to have number of researchers, so we have over 5.5 thousand researchers, group researchers on generations. So, but those born 1999 to 2005, being on the border generation, they are those who are current students in Russia and globally. The majority of those bachelor and master students are in this group. And so they have some of the values of the millennials and other values of the Generation Z. And another thing which is here is how to keep the good level of studies. This is difficult because it's not that we are not good people. Imagine, we want to study, but we simply get tired. And how to, for example, in a group dynamics, other people would motivate you, would kind of discipline you just by the fact that they're sitting and studying normally. And here you have many disturbance factors. I'm looking right around, and the tea, the whatever, everything actually, everything. And you can switch off the sound. And what is worse, you can switch off your brain. So we need new skills and a new mindset to go into these distance studies. So, and to finish this part, because you asked a very nice question, but it's very big, I would say it's definitely a challenge also for the lecturers and the teachers. How to make the class interesting and keep people involved and attentive. So how to keep all of them here, alive, being interested in what you are telling. And all of us are in the competition who will win internet or us. So here comes the question, how to keep yourself in the mode of constant development, lifelong learning, and keeping yourself, I would say, in a good, not just physical shape, but mental shape. Mental shape and also edutainment shape. I would, and here what we need to study, what does it mean good edutainment or infotainment, which is interesting.
So thank you. So one additional questions for this. Borders of generations are changing. So what is the reason?
What do you mean borders are changing?
For example, it was about 2000 for millennials. Now it is 2004, for example.
No, 2002. Millennials finished in 2002, yeah. So according to our studies, we don't see in 2004, so you see, in 2006, we have like classical Generation Z representatives. The same as Homelanders, and so we will have them for around, we haven't actually for 20 years, looks like this. We expected, I would say, in the very beginning, that millennials will finish in 2000. So like the start of the new millennial. But when we study, so how you study, you ask people being born in a certain year in a group to agree, and then to depict, either write about this or draw about this, some reflections on what something means. For example, who is a good professor, what's a good class. And while they are drawing the same, that means we are dealing with the same generation. So we actually expect that some new notions, meanings, connotations will appear. Drawings, usually they are details at first, but these details should be repeated in 10 to 15 and more cities, and in the same way. If it doesn't happen, and that, for example, only one city draws or mentions something, that's a city specifics. So, and people who were born, for example, we expected actually that we will have earlier, then we switched to later, and then we were expecting that 1998 would be the start of the border generation, not 1999 like we have now. And so we made lots of research comparing the groups of those born in 1998 with those who were born in 1991 to 1992 for classical millennials, who are like giving the perfect results in the mass research, and you can see the generation like perfectly well. But 1998 was doing absolutely the same like those guys. And it was doing the same in all different cities. And we make research starting from 10,000 to megapolises. And suddenly 1999 brought this new specifics, and it was a big talk about friendship and about dishonesty in friendship. So
So sounds complicated and interesting.
It is, because, but all good, you see, the challenge is how to get valid data, not to get lots of false data the world is, for example, filled with. But the majority, I think, I know you also deal with the generations, and I think you see that the dates are absolutely crazy, and they're often based on the phenomenon which is called falsification, manipulation of the data. Most of all, I like BBC research on this. They showed it on not on generational data, but we have a very good parallel with this. But they showed it on the famous factor, which generations also had to deal with. It was in one of the articles, it was mentioned that the scale of attention for the current kids is only 8 seconds. And then there was, you know, this continuation like, oh, oh God, I forgot the word, and it's a simple one. The fish attention. The fish scale of attention is 9 seconds, and then everyone started how you can imagine shouting. The current kids, modern kids, are more stupid than the fish. They can't keep their attention. That's global problem. And BBC made a journalistic investigation and figured out that this research doesn't exist. But what they figured even more, that the company which was mentioned in the article who made the research doesn't exist at all. In generations, imagine, yeah, it's terrible. It's like, and people believed, companies were developing programs, they were working with these, especially in marketing and everything. We're working now with Likey, and it's all fine there. Likey, it's like TikTok, but in our country with, of a younger age. And concerning generation, it's the same. Like there are many data, not many, actually there was one article, I want to underline this, where it was written that Generation Z starts from 1996. And people are so happy, like using this data, citing this data, no proof at all, no research. It was just the fact written by one person from marketing, because it's easier for us as human beings to split life in shorter periods of time. But I think now in the university, you feel that there is high demand for proofs. And kids will be asking for this more and more. So forget, Generation Z starts from 2003. And it's connected very strictly with technological and economic cycles. And the millennials are up to 2002, and it's not just Russian data, it's global. And frankly speaking, the difference globally could be 1 year, no more. But with the Generation Z, we wouldn't have the difference, because here it depends on the devices with touchpads. And the dates when it appeared, 2007, 2008. That's it.
Can you give some research advice for our students? So some of them conduct research on generations and educational business.
Sure. Number one, concerning the dates, currently use just our dates, and it's not self-advertisement. It's actually, it's very bad. But I don't see other global research centers who are dealing with the borders, definition of the borders. So this is number one. So use the correct borders. Number two, look for the proofs of what you read. Really, look if the research exists, who made it, and check. As I mentioned now, does this organization, center, whatever exists in reality? Because there are lots of citing, reciting, re-reciting of the data, and so you don't know who mentioned this and how was it. Number three, try it, don't be curious. This is something very important. And remember that in any case, you are representative of another generation in the majority of cases. So if you are studying other generations, they will for sure be thinking differently. And if you are doing, you belong to the generations you're writing about, or you're studying, making a research on, study it with other people. Recheck. Check it, recheck, make the data valid. Because we globally need to create more data which is reliable, which is valid, which can be used for future good things.
So thank you. As millennial, really curious. Millennials are meant to be the generation that are going to change the world. So according to theory. How do you think how are millennials changing and challenging world?
Actually, you're not that much challenging. You will be doing this probably a bit ahead, but you have the intention, and this is very important. Our book on millennials in Russia, we have it in Russian. This is like in the family. Each family is not without a millennial. I don't know how to translate it better. It's kind of a joke, a sarcastic note. Saying about the generation, but the continuation is what the generation which changes the world should do, and the generation is already intending and changing the world, but on smaller scales. But the generation has the intention to change it more seriously, and for this reason we expect the generation of millennials to go into politics. And I'm mentioning this, and I'm using the word which is actually non-correct anymore even in English, because the word millennial should be you see, each generational name has the reason to be said. And before we were using the English word millennial, but now we know it's not the correct word. More correct is millennium generation, like generation which was born in the previous century or the previous millennial, and then crossed the border of two millennials. Cross the border of millennium. The next situation like this will be 978 something years from now. So it's a big difference. So such event happens just once in 1,000 years. And what it means for the current generation of millennium generation, that they feel that they are more modern, more advanced than other generations who graduated from school in the previous century. You see, and that would be the expectation of the whole generations. Prove to us that you are cool, you are modern, you are advanced, you are not outdated. Because generation worries about this, that's what you will be changing. So, and concerning the name millennial, these are all the generations which are born during the millennium. So during 1,000 years, for example, Generation Z or Homelanders is included into this. So, but millennium, it's a super cool thing. Like you see, from the past to the future, to the present, to something super cool. So, but yes, you will, politics will be a big area. And when we are making the research, your generation starts talking about this. So I don't need to turn my back if somebody mentions politics, because other generations won't be taking care of this that much. I know that if I miss some of the political news, my team, in which there are millennium generation, you see, I'm in Russian, I'm trained to use this. In English, I'm still using the old term. They will inform me about things to pay attention on, things which are important for the country and the world. At the moment, you're kind of questioning what to get ready for, how to get ready for this future. So I recommend you watch my TED Talk. It's called Пойми Millennium in Russian, or Understand the Millennium in English. We have it with subtitles in English. So if you go to RuGenerations website, there will be a link to this. And so you can watch, or you can do it in YouTube channels of RuGenerations. Maybe it's simpler. I think it will be simpler for the foreign speakers. It will be easier.
So, and what about changes? Um, changes conducted by forced by millennials in corporate world and business?
Not much yet.
Not much.
Generation X and baby boomers are more in power, and Generation X is there, and depending on the country, you need to see how many. Millennium generation is coming into power, not depending on the industries, because Generation X is also a big generation. I would say there was a saying at certain moment that millennium generation is better for digital and telecom IT companies. Currently not like this, because it depends. Now companies look more at the skills, knowledge, and for example, border generation X millennium is quite good with this. But you see, you mentioned another thing. And so guys, remember, each generation will mention something which is important. It's like about changing the world, and this impact Lisa is talking about this leadership. The concept of leadership is very, very important for millennials, for millennium generation. And Lisa, correct me when I need to learn it in English. Currently, I'm speaking more in Russian, including the boards of directors, but in Russian. So you see, being a leader is becoming a leader, becoming a successful leader is very important for generation of millennium generation, born 1985 to 2002. And the question is how to become this leader. So, and that's something to be discussed, and something which is very, very important, and generation is ready to invest in, because it's very cool when you can be this type of a person, when you can do great things. And I would say the only threat is because your generation had a very, I would say, pressing idea of successful success or super successful success. When we first started talking about this phenomenon, everyone was laughing at us, but now it's kind of, people are using this term a lot, because here is the model, which is quite challenging. For example, you see, for other generations, if you're successful in one thing, you are a successful person. For millennium generation, if you are not successful in one thing, you are not successful at all. And imagine that's the height of failure. So there were a lot of conditions which were forming this in your childhood. And that's why you want to talk about how to stand up back after failures, after, sorry to say, fuck-ups. And these are the terms which are officially used in corporate language, because I would say the height of falling is really felt like something threatening, not just simple height. And for other generations, including modern kids of Generation Z, it's much easier to stand up, to get back to the activities. And for millenniums, that's a big issue. So talk about leadership, go to different groups, talk with us as founders, CEOs, and so on, and listen to various stories. So what you need to do actually, to make a collection of different stories, and it should be minimum 10, 15 examples of various types of career, various types of success, various diversity of approaches how to do this. And then also 10 to 15 or better 20 types of failures and what you do in those failures. But remember, that's like you like balance of work-life balance. It's balance of successes and unsuccesses. So that's tremendously important.
So, and the image of success, does it influence the consumer behavior? So I know the term like fear of missing out, like FOMO. So
This is millennium thing, the same as, help me to translate this, syndrome of self-proclaimer, probably, syndrome самозванца.
Probably.
And that's something, a phenomenon which exists only for your generation. And so when you're questioning the right, whether you have the right even for successfully done projects, other generations don't have it, and when they try to prove to us that they do, no, it's like very different in the nature, in the way how they deal with the situation. Professional questioning whether I can do it better is fine, but it's not questioning, do I deserve being in this project, leading this project. Generation X and Generation Z would answer yes. It wouldn't even have this question. So, and you will be questioning, asking. That's why you're actually building. You see, for development, you need to build in psycholinguistics. It's called the connotation. And connotation, it's not just the meaning of the words. It's also actions which should be done in order to move forward. And so you need to build the big picture of this leadership and success, filled not just with the words, but with the words as well, but also with the actions. And that's very important. For example, how do I behave? What do I say? How I deal with conflicts? What do I do if I don't do something properly? How I deal when somebody is trying to diminish my importance, and so a number of issues.
So thank you. So I appreciate that you share so much information about millennials. So for me as millennial, it is
Millennium. All of us let's learn to do this. I know, guys, it's very important, but it's something which you actually come to. Maybe we will still be living with these millennials, but remember that it will be a millennium. But it's now, like I told you. So generation, for example, I will give you example on Generation Z or Homelanders, and they were like we're asking them which name do you like, and generation should like the name. In Russian, millennium, so after you understand the meaning, it's much nicer. So great people are not questioning whether to be called millennium or millennials. Which doesn't have meaning in Russian actually. But with Homelanders, they can be called Homelanders. There are several usually names for the generation, Homelanders and Generation Z. And they don't like Generation Z, even though it's a Zoom generation, Zoomer generation, like we do on the touchpads, on the screens. They have the association with zombies. And they keep asking us, are we zombies? Because number of movie series and everything was tremendous on the zombies during that time. And we answer, no. They say, okay, Zoom is better than this, but Homelanders sounds nicer. You see, it's like, that's why generations will rule the world and decide how they're going to be called, treated, what they want to do in the world.
So let's talk more about Homelanders. So what to expect from them as future university students and students of business schools?
Oh, they would know a lot in science, technology, and art. And they would go into this seriously, and the expectation and expectations on good studying is, we see it, we trace it in all the research and their behavior. They really want good education. They don't have the talks which, for example, millenniums had. It was like those who get C grades will lead the A graders. No way. They know that those people who study better would get cooler, more interesting projects, possibilities, and so on. And they will require, as I was showing to you, more proofs, because this talk about manipulations, falsification of information, of the data, got on their childhood. It didn't get on the childhood of the millennium generation. But here, yes, and so all of us will be giving lots of proofs. And so that's what we need to do. And concerning business, it will be the same. So we will need to prove them much more in for them as customers, employees, and so on. And they will be having quite high qualification in distinguishing whether this real data or not. So we already see that they're paying lots of attention on this, but that's good, I think.
Yeah, sounds optimistic.
For the universities, for the educational system of the world, it's perfect. So we are now in a new cycle when we go for 80 or 100 years for this new education, that's an exciting period, challenging for the universities. I would say now a bit easier for the universities, but harder for the schools. But we will manage. We always managed as a humanity.
So it sounds optimistic for universities at all, for the academic system.
Challenging for the teachers and the system. For the lecturers and the system, but you see, it's not the starting point already. For the universities, the changes started in the first decade of this century, so it's like easier. So for the schools, the changes started, more changes during the last 5-7 years. So it's tougher there, less agreements, but universities, they understood the language of global ratings, the language of publications, the language of this combination of approaches. And I must say, as a guest professor for RENEPA, other MBA and executive MBAs, I feel this a lot. So I have my PhD, and no one cared about PhD till 2013, 14, this period. And I was working quite a lot during this time with Berkeley, Brazil, Italy, and suddenly everyone was interested. Before, okay, who cares? You made my PhD, and guys, it's the best period of time now. So if you have an idea whether to make PhD now, better do this. During the next 40 years, it would influence. And I'm not saying this because I want all of you to go to make a PhD. That's very individual. But if you had an idea, definitely do this now. Because the next period when there will be less interest in this, it will be much, much later. So next 40 years, you need to prove that you are a cool person and say, certificate, PhD, blah, blah, blah.
Done.
And it's not blah, blah, blah. So that's a proof. A real proof, and it will be now how it's called, when I even forgot in Russian, when they make the control on citing, whether you're writing the work by yourself. Цитирование, control цитирование, so that you didn't copy somebody's work, so it's a real one. So
something original, I don't know.
Yes. So
it's Russian word to original.
One very cool thing. So it's a good period for the global world when we will have lots of cool teachers and lecturers coming to the schools and universities. We were missing this. With the universities, we have this, but I want the universities to be more flexible in general in inviting good quality people, but from the industries, and having this, and probably we will have to prove this as well, the right to teach. But the universities should be more open, but schools will get good teachers. That's extremely, guys, important.
Millennials?
What?
Millennials, teachers, I mean.
Yes, millennials will be coming, millennium generation, because you heard it, and so that's a cool period. Ready to talk about this, and Lisa, I really like your questions.
Thank you. So, and the last question. So, do you have some specific advice for business schools?
For business what?
Schools, business schools.
For business schools. I was a guest. I'm a guest lecturer in Russia, in Brazil, in Italy, and I was in the States. I definitely want South Korea or Japan to have this experience of teaching a bit there. I would say business schools learned that the programs should involve the global world. This is number one. They learned it, but now there is a huge accent on simultaneously on localization, and the closing of the borders has given the possibility to renew the industries inside of the countries, like, for example, the touristic industry in all the countries, just for the locals. And you saw that during this year, for example, Russians and those who are in Russia, they couldn't go much abroad and they were traveling inside. And like I was traveling recently to South America, where I used to live, and I know all the prices. But it was like when I opened the prices for the business flight and closed it. Then I walked a bit and thought, okay, maybe I get accustomed to this, reopened it. And that's not just the change of the prices because of the different rates, exchange rate of dollar, euro, and pound. It's now, that's definitely the rise of the cost of the traveling, which appeared due to pandemic, oh, it's like I would say that business schools, those will be who have more the same, like more international lecturers, those who have more cool things, but they should involve, now they're still playing this game, like if you're a cool business school, you need to have more publications, and the game of publications is quite tough now in the world, and is not everywhere extremely proper. So they need to learn the way how to involve more people from business and make prices for this a bit more friendly in order to have more people, because now it became super expensive for publishing the articles in World of Science and all those journals and magazines with the ratings, level A and so on. I would say there will be those who are like, for example, like IBS and RANEPA, who have, it's not MBA, or MBA, but having the partner programs are very cool, because it brings not just studying of different things, that brings network. And this is what people are ready to pay for, and that's where people are ready to study with. So I think we will be paying more for networking, and there will be more approaches and models how involve those business people. And the last thing, it would be more like solutions and things on the cross borders of different sciences, specializations, because it lies those more, it's like the world of the blue ocean, which lies fully there. This was the question of, in general, the talk was very nice, but that was the question of the real open innovations where I'm a speaker, or economic forums where I also speak at. So, and I'm very glad that students, PhD students, and those who will be there, you're dealing with such a conference. And frankly speaking, Lisa, she was my student. I would say she would confirm that I advise people, students starting from the first grade, first year in the university, to attend Gaidar Forum as volunteers or something, because you need to choose several global forums which appeal to you, appeal to your areas of interests, and try to attend them. Try to go and be there.
So thank you for today. I'll get all answers that I need. So also I have much more about the next time. So I hope that I will see you as an expert on Student Gaidar conference.
Thank you, with great pleasure, and good luck to you guys. And deal nicely with generations, and remember that you can't become another generation, but you can learn the language of another generation and follow the correct borders. RuGenerations are part fluent, быстро. So, or quick, I don't know how to call it. In Russian, it's быстро, and so there we have those borders.
So thank you. Bye. So see you on Student Gaidar. So thank you.